For just $40, a rancher discovered an incredible small house hiding two inspiring Apache youths whose passion for art could awaken an entire community. Samuel felt the sun bearing down on him as he tightened his grip on the hammer. He pounded nails into the fence post, each blow filled with agitation. The upcoming cattle auction loomed over him, a beacon of urgency in his parched life. The weight of his dwindling finances pressed upon his shoulders like the heavy Arizona sun, every decision feeling monumental, yet every hope tinged with a sense of desperation. When he stumbled upon the hidden house, the faded paint and broken windows seemed to encapsulate everything he feared. A life left to decay, much like his dreams of success. Curiosity gnawed at him, and he pushed open the creaking door, stepping into a world that battered against his long-held belief of independence. Inside, seated on the dusty floor, were two Apache teens. The air thickened with their silent stories of struggle and resilience. It struck him as they shared vibrant canvases, artwork brimming with a fire he couldn't help but admire. A voice inside him whispered, these kids could break free, while another warned, but at what cost? Samuel's mind raced, thoughts slamming together, colliding like the cattle he wrangled daily. Should he help them produce more art to find freedom in a world filled with prejudice? Or should he protect the sanctuary they had found, even if it meant further isolation? The anguish turned his stomach as he weighed the risks of exposure against the solemn duty he felt towards them. After all, they were vulnerable, and his ranch was yet another remnant of a world that churned with society's judgments. The choice felt sinister, a betrayal of his own family values or risking everything he had built. The situation deepened with every encounter. As Elena and Darius created mesmerizing pieces that told stories from their hearts, Samuel felt his resolve slip further. Their laughter, especially when Darius bonded with his young son over art, illuminated his dim world. His heart wrestled with a mixture of hope and unease. Could he dare to redefine himself? Yet as the bills piled up, the loss from the cattle auction threatened to rip apart his already frayed connections. If he stepped out to support these boys and their talents, would he lose his ranch, his identity? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A confrontation was brewing, and whispers among neighbors began to corrode the air. Questions of loyalty swirled as he forged ahead, determined to showcase what these talented teens could offer. Their art represented something greater, an uprising against the dejection that filled the town. Samuel faced the fraying fibers of his beliefs, torn between protecting his family's legacy and embracing the profound connection he shared with the boys. The pressure mounted like the cacti that stood stubbornly against the unrelenting desert. His heart felt hollow, teetering between righteousness and the gnawing fatigue of traditional expectations. With every small decision and each brave choice to stand alongside Elena and Darius, the stakes rose higher, thickening the fog of uncertainty. As Samuel stared at the artworks illuminating his living room, visions of the destruction and judgment that might come flooded his mind. His future was tangled in a web of pain and potential, the clock ticking down to a moment that would define not only his life, but the lives of those teens who had bravely opened up to him. Would he step into the light where shadows lurked, or retreat into silence? The outcome hung precariously in the balance, a singular choice waiting to shatter his world. Samuel awoke the next morning to the relentless sun glaring through the cracks of his window, illuminating the dust that danced in the air. The artwork from the Apache teens now adorned his walls, a bold mixture of pastels and earth tones that were both captivating and unsettling. It reminded him of the choices looming over him, choices he had to face before the auction. He felt an urgency gripping him, stronger than ever, and the echoes of laughter from Elena and Darius lingered in his mind, mingling with the weight of his worries. As he stepped outside, the familiar landscape greeted him, but today it seemed different. The desert was more than just a backdrop to his life. It was a canvas of its own, filled with potential and hope. Yet the nagging thoughts of financial ruin gnawed at him like a persistent coyote howling in the distance. His mind drifted back to the boys and their art. Could these pieces be more than mere expressions? Could they be a lifeline, a way to connect not only his family but also the fragmented town around them? That insight sparked a plan. He decided to host a small gathering at his place, an informal exhibit of Elena and Darius's work. It was a risk, elevated by the potential backlash from the other ranchers in the area, yet Samuel felt an intense pull to act. This was no longer just about him or his ranch. It was about nurturing the passions of youthful visionaries who dared to dream despite their heavy pasts. He motioned for Elena and Darius the next afternoon, inviting them to a brainstorming session while trying to mask his nervousness. Their initial hesitance transformed into a cautious excitement as they contemplated the idea of sharing their art with the wider world. Samuel watched them. He admired the way their faces lit up, the hunger in their eagerness, which mirrored the stirrings of a long-forgotten part of himself. It was in this moment that he felt the hinges of his life shift. Gone was the man whose every action revolved around cattle and survival. Instead, he felt the stirrings of a new identity, one who could foster talent and learn to dismantle his own fears. But apprehension lingered. What if the auction went poorly? What if his neighbors perceived this as a betrayal of tradition? The evening of the gathering arrived, and Samuel transformed part of his ranch into an ad hoc gallery. The air buzzed with anticipation as guests arrived, their expressions an uncomfortable mix of curiosity and skepticism. Samuel noticed how people's whispers echoed against the sun-drenched walls, a myriad of opinions swirling around the artworks that spoke to strength in adversity. As the evening progressed, a realization hit him. It was not just the teens who needed this space for art. He needed it too. The gathering became a crucible of vulnerability that ignited his determination. He introduced Elena and Darius, each sharing stories of their inspiration, their struggles, and their dreams. The town folks listened, captivated, and for the first time, Samuel saw glimmers of recognition blossom among hardened faces. But as smiles spread, so did murmurs of dissent from a corner of the room. An old rancher, arms crossed and brow furrowed, challenged the notion of empowerment through art with doubts laced in tradition and fear. Samuel's heart raced. This confrontation felt like the pivotal moment he had both dreaded and anticipated. Would he rise to defend not only the youths, but also his newfound belief in their journey? Maybe it's time for us all, he began, voice steady yet low, to redefine what it means to be connected to this land and each other. The challenge hung in the air, a chance for Samuel to prove his commitment, yet a glimpse of uncertainty flickered within him. The crowd's eyes shifted between him and the detractor, awaiting the answer that would shape his path forward. Would he embrace this moment, or let doubt seize him? And so, as he stood before a divided room, the weight of his choice curdled in the pit of his stomach, foreshadowing an inevitable confrontation. The outcome loomed large, surrounding him like the desert night, dark and unpredictable. The moment had come to face not just the community, but the man he was destined to become. Samuel's pulse quickened, the air in the room thickening around him as he centered his thoughts on the old rancher's challenge. Those hardened eyes, deeply etched with years of skepticism, fueled a conflict within him, demanding a reply that would either fracture or forge the community he aspired to reshape. He drew in a measured breath, feeling the weight of the moment push down on him like the oppressive afternoon sun. The eyes of the crowd bore into him, a mix of curiosity and expectation, coaxing his resolve. Art is not just a decoration, he pressed on, his voice gaining strength. It's a voice. It's a bridge that connects our past to a future we're yet to define. Murmurs of agreement and dissent danced through the crowd, a swell of voices clashing and whispering uncertainty. Samuel searched for Elena and Darius amidst the throng, their expectant expressions locked onto his, radiating hope and confidence. Encased in the aura of their talent, his momentum swelled. We have all fought battles, haven't we? We have watched our families struggle, our ranches wane, and yet, here we are, in the heart of this community. We can choose to be weighed down, or we can choose to uplift each other. As his words hung in the air, he felt a powerful realization wash over him. This wasn't merely about art or tradition. It was a chance to redefine who he was. No longer just a rancher dedicated to maintaining an outdated legacy, he envisioned himself as a catalyst for change, empowering others to express their truth through the very soil that birthed their histories. The old rancher uncrossed his arms, skepticism replaced with an uncertainty that mirrored Samuel's own internal struggle. The flicker in the elderly man's eyes gave him a glimmer of hope. Perhaps he wasn't alone. Perhaps others were ready for transformation too. Samuel decided then to lean into this unpredictability, striving to transform his discomfort into conviction. "Let's auction the artwork," he declared, the words tumbling out before he could censor himself. "All proceeds can help fund new initiatives for our youth, giving them the support they need to dream and sustain their art." He felt a surge of commitment as he made the suggestion. Art has the power to heal, and in this fragile moment, we can heal together. As his voice echoed, hesitation morphed into anticipation, and a quiet buzz began to ripple through the audience. Samuel kept his gaze steady on the old rancher, now scanning the room, gauging reactions. Tension hung palpably, but something within him kept steady. An unexpected solidarity began to bloom in the room. The rancher's brow furrowed deeper, but a hint of contemplation flickered across his features. Samuel's resolve only stiffened with each passing second. He could feel this pivotal moment grounding him. He had taken the risk, had stood up for more than just the art, but for a vision that could unite them. The gathering ultimately became more than he imagined. People moved closer, questioning the meaning and stories behind the art, captivated by a budding hope that was contagious. They began to discuss possibilities about working together for the first time in years, their voices rising in assertion. Yet the old rancher remained silent, a sentinel of tradition. Samuel ventured inward, wrestling with the high stakes of his proposition. Each interaction spurred his burgeoning insight. He was no longer just a defender of art or mentor of youth, but emerged as an architect of community identity, grappling with ignited passions of his own. As the gathering wound down, Samuel stole a glance towards Elena and Darius. They stood beaming, a promise of better days reflected in their hopeful expressions. Yet, a lingering uncertainty hung over him like the dusk settling in the corners of the room. Was the old rancher's opinion the real barrier he needed to break? Or was there something deeper at play? Samuel felt an alignment within, a raw surge of determination urging him to confront not just the hostility of the past, but any unaddressed part of himself too, the fears that had kept him tethered to an outdated identity. And so, just as he thought it vital to tackle this confrontation head-on, another realization struck him with an icy clarity. The auction was just a week away. The decision of whether to pursue this dream fully loomed larger than ever, a call to arms echoing inside his mind. Could he gather the strength to push through, not only for the youth but for his own transformation? The room gradually emptied, but Samuel felt turmoil rising in him. There lay in wait his internal struggle, a confrontation he couldn't ignore. Would he ultimately have the courage not only to challenge the old ways, but to claim the life he envisioned and deserved at long last? Samuel lingered in the aftermath of the gathering, the echoes of applause and murmurs fading into a frail stillness. The room that had pulsed with energy just moments ago now seemed hollow, a stark contrast to the fiery declarations that had just resonated within its walls. With every step he took towards the door, he felt the weight of his challenge press against his chest. He stood outside, the cool evening air washing over him, momentarily cleansing the turmoil inside. Yet, even as he inhaled the calm, his mind was a tempest. The imminent auction loomed large, and hidden within that prospect lurked not just opportunity, but dread. Would people be willing to invest in the youth and art of a fading community? Even more pressing, could he chair this movement effectively? Elena's words from earlier haunted him, urging him to visualize the tangible change they could spark. If you become the person you're meant to be, Samuel, then they will follow. But who was he, really? A fractures rancher? A conflicted visionary? He couldn't reconcile the two identities that persisted within him. His gaze fell on the horizon, a canvas stained with brilliant hues of orange and purple. Those colors reminded him of the artwork he had sought to promote, pieces created by hands that spoke to the aching hearts of a lost culture. He grasped the notion that the art needed a protector, a champion with enough faith to overcome skepticism. Samuel clenched his fists, resolving to confront the fears that stifled him. As he strode back inside, a pang of urgency gripped him. He needed to speak to the old rancher. Meaningful change required the blessing of tradition, he realized. Samuel crossed the threshold once more, searching for the man who represented both his greatest challenge and perhaps his strongest ally. The rancher had retreated to a dimly lit corner, his silhouette cast against the dusky light filtering through the window. Samuel approached with trepidation, yet every step ignited a simmering courage. "Can I talk to you?" he asked, his voice steadier than he felt. The rancher inclined his head, a sign of reluctant consent. "I know we don't see eye to eye," Samuel began, choosing his words with care, "but I don't want to just challenge traditional values. I want to weave them with something new, something that can sustain us." He held his breath, gauging the rancher's reaction, hoping for a flicker of recognition. The old man shifted, his eyes narrowing. "You think youth need art more than they need the land? They need to learn to work, not to paint." His voice was a gruff reminder of the principles he held dear, forging a path of uncertainty for Samuel. "I disagree," Samuel replied, bolstered by a strange mix of defiance and desperation. "They need both. Art is a part of this land, just like the crops. If we can nourish both, we can create a richer future." He voiced his conviction with fervor. The risk of rejection clung in the air between them. The rancher's silence stretched, and Samuel dared to step closer. "I'm asking for your help. Need your voice to support this auction. We could raise funds to educate these kids, give them hope, something to fight for." He could hear the tremor in his own voice, revealing the stakes at hand not only for those around him, but for the narrative of his own life. Yet the rancher remained inscrutable, absorbed in thought. Samuel's heart raced, wrestling with the prospect of stepping into the unknown, faced with the potential of failure. He didn't just need backing for the auction, he yearned for validation in his own choices. As the old rancher finally spoke, each word turned over the silence like stones skimming across water. "You want to change this place, kid? Then change it. But remember, it's not just about dreams." There was a challenge in those words, an understanding of the hard truth. Dreams alone could not rewrite history. Samuel felt a newfound determination surge within him. This was his moment to step forward and confront the duality of who he was. The conversation with the rancher could ignite a fire, or it could extinguish his aspirations altogether. But he realized, with the pressure mounting and the auction just days away, the time was ripe to claim his voice. Backing wasn't just a hope he sought, it was a testament to his own growth, a step towards defining his purpose, merging tradition with ambition. He turned to leave, knowing the journey ahead would test him deeply, but he was ready to confront both the challenge of the past and the promise of the future. Little did he know, the next hour would catalyze events that would shatter all expectations, his own included. Samuel stepped out of the dim corner and into the night, where shadows stretched across the moonlit landscape. His heart quickened, a restless rhythm that punctuated the silence, mirroring the turmoil within. The rancher's reply echoed in his mind like a distant thunder, urging him to adapt or remain stagnant. He chose to adapt, to confront his fears head-on and redefine the path before him. As he walked the empty streets, he contemplated the rancher's challenge. Change didn't come easily, especially in a realm where stubborn tradition and vivid dreams coexisted uneasily. Samuel yearned for tangible outcomes, a clear manifestation of his aspirations. He could only hope that the rancher's grudging endorsement could bridge the chasm between the older generation's skepticism and the thirst for renewal held by the youth. He found himself outside an old dusty gallery, its windows dimmed, yet still hinting at the vibrant life within. Having spent countless evenings amidst brushes and canvases, Samuel knew art had a pulse, a heartbeat of stories and emotions waiting to break free. However, tonight it felt different. A revitalizing purpose surged within him. He was not merely advocating for art, but imploring for the rightful recognition of the stories nestled in fleeting brushstrokes. Inside the gallery, he encountered Elena, her expressive eyes reflecting the fervor he felt. She was sorting through canvases, each a potential entry into the auction. "You look intense," she commented, an amused smile tugging at her lips. "I am," he replied, gripping a canvas that spoke volumes of triumph over adversity. "I just spoke with the rancher. He's not on board yet." Elena raised her eyebrows, intrigued. "What did he say?" "It was a challenge," Samuel admitted, eyeing the vibrant colors and themes of resilience portrayed on the canvas. "But it also felt like liberation. He's pushing me to prove that the dream has substance. It's time to show them what we can create. As they delved into discussions about the auction, Samuel sensed a stirring possibility in Elena's voice. You know, Samuel, it's not just about the art. It's the artist behind it. Maybe it's time we share their stories. A spark ignited in Samuel. He envisioned each painting not merely as artwork, but vessels carrying narratives of struggle, identity, and rebirth. The youths who created these pieces weren't just artists. They were voices clamoring to be heard. They began crafting a plan, a way to integrate personal stories with the art, weaving a tapestry of human experience that could resonate with potential buyers. This angle was not only compelling, it was transformative. They needed to show the rancher, indeed the entire community, that this was not merely an abstract idea, but a critical endeavor he could support. In the days that followed, Samuel and Elena forged connections with local youth artists, capturing their life experiences and motivations. Each story became a thread interlacing with the others, binding together the essence of their community, their struggles, and their hopes. Samuel felt a burgeoning sense of purpose. This was not just for the auction but for redefining the future of their community. However, as optimism blossomed, so too did anxiety. The night before the auction, Samuel found himself alone, grappling with self-doubt. Would the stories resonate? He needed the rancher's endorsement, and without it, would his efforts be in vain? The enormity of the moment loomed heavy over his shoulders. This was no longer just a community endeavor. It had become a manifestation of his deepest self, a reflection of who he was meant to be. As dawn crept over the horizon, Samuel gathered his resolve and prepared to face the rancher once more. He needed to articulate the impact of these narratives and the potential for collective healing, and time was running out. Little did he know, however, that the rancher harbored secrets that could shatter more than just his expectations. Secrets that would ultimately challenge the very fabric of Samuel's aspirations. Samuel's morning unfolded in fractured moments of thought as he paced the old wood floors of the gallery. The faint scent of paint intermixed with wood polish enveloped him, a reminder of the vibrant world he was trying to amplify. He needed clarity, an understanding of how to turn the rancher's challenge into an opportunity. Each step reverberated with the weight of expectation, and each breath felt tinged with the thrill of potential. The sunlight streamed through dusty windows, casting long, angular shadows across the canvases that lay strewn about. In that light, Samuel could almost see the narratives he and Elena had worked tirelessly to curate. The stories of struggle and resilience, color splashed against a backdrop of adversity. But as he prepared for his meeting with the rancher, he was haunted by self-doubt. Were they enough? Would the rancher see their worth beyond the strokes of paint? He took a steadying breath, acknowledging the knot in his stomach. Today was not merely about art, it was about bridging two worlds, tradition through the lens of cultural expression. Would Merle, the rancher, even be able to appreciate the transformation of simple colors into powerful tales? As he left the gallery, a sudden gust of wind ruffled his shirt, reminiscent of the youth he was trying to ignite, wild, uncontained, full of possibilities. Standing outside the rancher's property loomed a threshold that felt monumental, the boundary between dream and reality wavering like heat on asphalt. The rancher's house came into view, nestled against a sprawling landscape that spoke of both beauty and history, a rugged structure swirling in tales of its own, each story woven both in the earth and between the walls. Samuel's resolve hardened. He would find a way to make Merle see not just the art, but the heart beating within it. He stood at the door for a moment, practicing his words. How would he articulate the essence of the stories? Words felt heavy in his mouth, trailing the stories of the artists he represented. Focusing on the narratives rather than the paintings became his mantra. He knocked, and the sound echoed in the silence, sharp and demanding. Merle opened the door, an eyebrow raised, a silent question hanging in the air. Did he sense Samuel's hesitance? "Come in," he said, stepping aside. Inside, the rancher's space was an avalanche of Western memorabilia, a world that echoed the past. Samuel felt dwarfed by it, intensely aware of the unspoken judgments Merle could wield. "Why don't you tell me what you've got?" Merle's voice was gruff but curious, the challenge embedded in the words. With each carefully chosen phrase, Samuel began to weave the stories. He spoke of Mayra, whose mural depicted her relationship with her mother, caught in the crossroads of past and future. He painted vivid images of countless voices whispering through acrylics, tales of struggle shouting for recognition. He saw Merle's brows furrow, a newfound intrigue hooking his attention. But just as Samuel felt hope flicker to life, Merle cut in. "And you think this will pull the crowd?" The rancher's voice was deliberate, skepticism hiding just beneath. "Stories are one thing, but art alone has to sell. What if they don't connect?" Here was the confrontation that Samuel sensed was coming. "It can connect," he argued, emboldened. "Art has power, and when infused with lived experiences, it transcends expectation." The rancher's gaze narrowed as he evaluated Samuel, testing the conviction in his voice. Samuel's heart raced. Was it enough? Suddenly, Merle's expression shifted from skepticism to something darker. "You might want to dig a bit deeper, Samuel. Some stories are better left alone." A cold chill enveloped the room, causing Samuel to falter momentarily. What did the rancher mean? Had he stumbled upon something more than he had bargained for in his quest? Just then, Merle leaned back in his chair, a glint of something dangerous hidden within the depths of his eyes. "You're involved in something you don't fully understand." The words felt like a hard blow, leaving Samuel disoriented. As he left the ranch, a new urgency gripped him. Had he unearthed truths he was unprepared to confront? The quest for acceptance had unveiled perilous secrets, and he was only beginning to grasp the challenge ahead. "No," he thought, clenching his fists in determination, "I won't retreat now." But the looming question hung. What lay beneath the surface of the rancher's warning? And how would those hidden truths redefine his mission? Samuel walked away from the rancher's house, each step feeling heavier than the last. The words Merle had thrown at him reverberated in his mind. What lay beneath the surface of the rancher's warning? He had stepped into the unknown, bringing forth not only art, but the echoes of living histories. Yet now he couldn't shake the feeling that he had ventured too far too soon. His determination wavered as he drove back to the gallery. The sprawling landscape of the ranch faded into the distance, but the unease clung to him tightly. The vibrant murals they had promised to share seemed less vivid now, shrouded in mystery and doubt. Was he merely a vessel carrying the stories, or did he hold the power to transform them into something greater? What if the very stories he sought to exalt were dappled with shadows best left untouched? Entering the gallery, the familiar scents enveloped him again, but they did little to settle his thoughts. Samuel paced the space as the sun began to dip, bleeding orange across the walls. Each canvas was a beat of a heart, each artwork a step closer to understanding. Would the revelation of deeper truth solidify their connection, or would it expose them to greater perils? Elena arrived, her presence a grounding force amidst his spiraling thoughts. "You look lost," she observed without judgment, her eyes searching his. "I think I might have bitten off more than I can chew," Samuel replied, frustration leaking into his tone. "Merle hinted that some stories are better left alone, yet I feel more compelled to uncover them." Elena considered him for a moment, her expression thoughtful. "What if Merle is right? Not all narratives need to be told, especially if they put people at risk." His stomach knotted. The last thing he wanted was to bring harm to those he admired. But the essence of art was vulnerability, and suppressing the stories felt like betrayal. "But what kind of curator would I be if I turned away? I have to dig deeper. I owe it to them," he insisted, grappling with the choice. "Then be careful, Samuel. History is layered, and peeling back those layers could expose raw wounds." Her caution seeped into him, igniting a battle within. In that moment, he thought of Mayra and the countless artists who put their souls into each stroke as a way to heal, to be seen. Their narratives were vital, yet the weight of them threatened to crush him. Would he have the strength to confront what lay ahead, not only for himself but for the voices he represented? Suddenly, an idea sparked, driving him to the small office in the back. He began drafting a proposal, a series of discussions to connect artists with the ranching community. It would create a platform for exchange, where stories could be shared and understood without losing their depth. Stepping back from the chaos of it all allowed him to see the hopeful potential glimmering on the horizon. But as he wrote, a growing realization settled over him. Would Merle support such an endeavor, or would he see it as an encroachment? The fear of rejection, of being dismissed again, surged within him. As he closed the dossier, a renewed sense of urgency enveloped him, pushing him to act. He couldn't allow fear to dictate his path. There were connections to forge, perhaps even with Merle. That glint of something dangerous in the rancher's eye might hold more than mere caution. It could be a call to challenge the narratives that bound them both. Just as he finished piecing his thoughts together, a knock echoed from the gallery front. Could it be Merle coming to share his own truths, or challenge him further? Samuel's heart raced, the uncertainty of the next moment tingling on the edges of his resolve. How would this encounter further redefine his path? Little did he know, it would force him to confront not just Merle, but himself. Samuel took a deep breath and opened the gallery doors, each creak echoing through the stillness. The bright colors of the paintings seemed to pulse, their stories waiting to be awakened. He found himself standing in the middle of the room, heart thundering in his chest, the energy electric in the air. He could feel the weight of the moment, the potential for change and confrontation lingering just beyond the threshold. Merle stepped inside, the warmth of the gallery contrasting sharply with the rancher's open expanse. The rancher's face was unreadable, a mask of rugged determination mixed with the hard-won wisdom of a life spent in the unforgiving elements. There was no immediate pleasantry exchanged. They stood on the precipice of a conversation that could shift the ground beneath them. "I had a feeling you'd be here." Merle finally broke the silence, his voice deep and gravelly. "I thought we could talk about that proposal you're drafting." The way he pronounced talk held a hint of challenge, like he already knew Samuel's intentions but was willing to confront them directly. "I want to create a dialogue between artists and the ranching community," Samuel began, urgency coiling in him. "It's important for the stories to flow both ways. We can learn from each other, Merle. That tension, that history, it can be a bridge rather than a barrier." Merle's brows knitted together, a flicker of skepticism crossing his face. "And what makes you think I'll play host to this exchange of stories?" His question was pointed, like the edge of a blade, probing Samuel for weaknesses. "Because you care," Samuel countered, feeling a surge of conviction. "You've shaped these stories just as much as the artists have. Ignoring this connection is a disservice to everyone, your community and the artists. You hold the keys to understanding a narrative that might otherwise remain hidden." The rancher studied him with piercing eyes. They felt as though they could see through the layers of his resolve, past the slick fabrications of an idealist eager for validation. Samuel held his breath, waiting for the storm to break. Would Merle see the merit in his proposal, or dismiss it as youthful ambition? The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken words, until finally Merle spoke. "There are stories that carry weight beyond understanding. Sharing them might not just uncover truth, it can also uproot traditions, incite anger, and create distrust. You really think you're prepared for that?" Samuel leaned in, his heartbeat racing. "I might not fully grasp the depth of every shadow, but I can't ignore the light that can come from sharing. If we bury the past out of fear, then we stifle growth. This gallery, these artists, they're ready to engage. It's about respect, not exploitation." Merle paused, searching Samuel's face for something deeper. "And what if it backfires? What if you break friendships, lead people down paths they're not ready for?" The unease crept back into the room, the weight of unquantifiable risk hanging overhead. "Then we'll face it together," Samuel replied, feeling a sense of clarity wash over him. "I can't promise ease or safety, but I can promise honesty and a chance for healing. Isn't that what we all want? To be heard?" The rancher's expression softened, just a fraction. "You really believe that art can heal wounds like this?" "Yes," Samuel stated firmly, the fire within him igniting. "Art has always had that power. It's time to bring that power to the ranch and the lives tied to it." The words hung in the air, a challenge and invitation wrapped in one. Samuel could see Merle weighing the proposition as the tension simmered. Perhaps this was the moment that would forge a new direction for both of them. The rancher narrowed his eyes, assessing. "Let's see what you can do then. But if you're going to tread these waters, be prepared for the backlash. Not everyone will agree with you." Samuel felt a mixture of excitement and dread. What had he set in motion? As Merle turned to leave, Samuel realized the journey ahead would not only redefine his work, but challenge the very fabric of who he was. Hidden within the rancher's stoicism lay an echo of fear. Fear of change, of vulnerability, perhaps even of growth. The walls of the gallery felt both secure and constraining as the enormity of their task settled in. With newfound determination etched on his soul, Samuel knew he would not shy away from the complexity ahead. He had the opportunity to become a catalyst, to unearth truth behind the veil of art, to confront not only the stories of the ranch, but the hidden narratives within himself. But as he stood amidst the fading light of the gallery, it dawned on him that decisions made today would ripple far beyond art. They would challenge the core of who he claimed to be. What lay ahead was unclear, a labyrinth of stories intertwined with misunderstandings and unexamined truths. Would he have the resolve to navigate it all? The road before him beckoned, full of questions that lingered ominously in the air. The true test was just beginning. Would he rise to the challenge or be buried beneath the weight of his own ambitions? Samuel watched as Merle's silhouette disappeared into the distance, the echo of his footsteps fading against the stone floor. The gallery felt emptier without the imposing figure of the rancher, the air thick with the gravity of their unresolved discussion. He glanced around at the paintings that adorned the walls. Each canvas seemed to watch him, urging him to take risks, to delve into the unknown. The bright colors before him were vibrant contrast to the turmoil swirling in his mind. What came next required conviction, not merely as an artist, but as a facilitator of dialogue. With every decision that stretched before him, doubt crept in like a shadow. Could he truly bridge the gap between two worlds so starkly different? He felt the weight of responsibility pressing down, constricting his vision. As excitement simmered beneath the surface, he couldn't shake off the anxiety that gnawed at his resolve. Determined to take control, Samuel grabbed his sketchpad and made his way to the back of the gallery. He needed clarity, and the only way to carve a path forward was to start mapping out his ideas. The cool white pages awaited him as he settled into a worn leather chair, tapping the pencil against his chin in thought. What did he want from this venture? The idea of showcasing local ranch stories alongside artists was innovative, but would it resonate? Would Merle's community accept the intrusion of outsiders telling their stories? What would happen when cultures collided? The questions piled up, each with the potential to derail his ambition. He sketched the outlines of the exhibit, labeling sections with phrases like celebration and heritage, but quickly crossed out some ideas as he wrestled with the reality of vulnerability. Was he ready to expose his own fears and simultaneously clash with the deeply rooted traditions that defined Merle's world? His pen hovered, and Samuel inhaled sharply. What if he took the plunge, not only as a curator but as a participant? He recalled his childhood, the mornings spent watching his grandfather paint. Those vibrant creations weren't just expressions. They were stories laced with struggles, joys, and legacies. His own narrative was intertwined with those of the ranchers, both torn between the past and an uncertain future. Suddenly, an idea struck him like lightning. Samuel envisioned not just a one-sided exchange, but rather an interactive component where the ranchers could share their tales alongside the artists' interpretations. Could he create a platform for collaboration where every voice mattered, every perspective held weight? He scribbled fervently, each stroke adding depth to the concept. But the excitement was tempered by the realization that such a venture would invite scrutiny, challenge preconceived notions, and perhaps even provoke hostility. There was power in those stories, but also fear of misrepresentation. The intensity of his thoughts brewed a restless energy within him. He flipped to a new page, writing out a plan. Workshops, forums, moments where silence could be broken, where barriers could begin to dissolve. Yet, he paused at the thought of confronting townsfolk reluctant to share their narratives. The very idea of facing their fears ignited a knot of apprehension in his gut. He'd have to brave the scrutiny of Merle's community and stand firm in his belief that art possesses a transformative power. Samuel felt the spark of determination reignite as he realized this was no longer just about an exhibit. It was about growth, not just for the ranch, but for himself. With each stroke of the pencil, doubt gradually transformed into a roadmap for potential. The challenge that lay ahead was daunting, but it was also an opportunity for true change, both personally and within the community. He covered the pages with sketches, outlines, and words, filling them with a sense of urgency and purpose. But with each uplifting idea, a flicker of hesitation remained. The path to healing is often fraught with difficulties. Would he emerge forged stronger or splintered and lost? As dusk settled outside, painting the sky in shades of orange and lavender, Samuel found clarity in this moment of creation. He couldn't shy away from the potential fallout. The choices he made would compel him to confront his deepest fears and longings, and ultimately reshape both himself and the perceptions held by others. He stepped back and stared at the emerging framework before him, aware that this map wouldn't ensure success. What awaited on the horizon was uncertainty, punctuated by necessity and amplified by vulnerability. And as the night deepened, a single thought pulsed in his mind like a heartbeat. If this journey was to change everything, he had to fully embrace both the light and the dark that came with it. Could he withstand the storms ahead and still emerge intact? The uncertainty loomed like a storm cloud, and Samuel stood at the brink, ready to face whatever would come next. The moment of action was drawing near. Soon, he would have to confront those demons head-on and face the uncharted territory before him. But what if, in that confrontation, he discovered something extraordinary about himself? Samuel awoke the next morning to a sunrise bleeding through his bedroom window, casting beams of golden light onto the floor that felt like a promise. The previous day's uncertainties had simmered into a potent resolve, challenging him to rise as a vehicle for change. Today was the day the auction would reveal not only the worth of the art, but the depth of their stories, a chance to redefine connections. As he prepared for the event, every brushstroke he had envisioned in his mind transformed into a tangible thread between his life and the artist's. The artwork, adorned with echoes of the past, now pulsed with voices that demanded to be heard. Samuel knew this was no longer just about presenting art, but about paving a pathway where tradition could coalesce with innovation. The gallery buzzed with energy as guests began to arrive. Each person served not simply as a spectator, but as a potential catalyst to bridge the abyss that had long divided his ranching community from the voices of the Apache artists. Samuel moved among the guests, absorbing their impressions as they interacted with the vibrant pieces, each one a window into lives he hoped they could embrace. His heart raced as he stood by the entrance, waiting for Merle. Would the rancher see the beauty in what the youth had created, or would he remain tethered to outdated ideals? It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing that a leap was necessary for the next chapter. When Merle stepped through the door, Samuel felt a mix of recognition and apprehension. The rancher's eyes scanned the room, a storm of dignity and skepticism etched on his face. Just remember, it's not about the art. The warning hung in the air like the threat of a gathering cloud. But Samuel understood the significance of these pieces. Each layer of paint echoed a truth waiting to resonate. "No, Merle," he replied, momentarily breaking through his nerves. "It's about understanding our shared experiences. We cannot move forward without confronting where we've been." As the auction commenced, Samuel took the stage, heart pounding loudly like a drumbeat, swallowing hard as he sought the words to connect. He shared stories of Mera, of Darius, and Elena. Each canvas you see is a reflection of our struggles, love, and survival. This is not merely art. Each piece is imbued with the hope and dreams of young artists who have fought to be seen. With every tale Samuel relayed, he sensed the collective curiosity shift within the audience. He saw eyes soften and walls begin to crumble, connections forming that seemed unimaginable just days before. Conversations bubbled, and a comfort settled over the room as ranchers stepped forward, unfolding their stories and sharing laughter, an openness that had been long neglected. When the bidding for Mera's mural began, murmurs rippled through the crowd. To Samuel's astonishment, Merle joined the bidding, wagering against naysayers. With each increasing bid, Samuel felt encouraged, striding forward to hand the microphone to Mera as she stepped up to share the inspiration behind her work. She poured her heart out, connecting with the audience and drawing them closer. The rancher's face reflected an internal conflict, a flicker of changing perspectives ignited by the raw emotion of the moment. Every voice that resonated with vulnerability fortified Samuel's ambience of purpose. This was not just an auction, it was a reclamation of identity, a celebration of resilience in the face of adversity. As the night unfolded, bids exploded, affirming the value of the stories and lives that they cherished. The results turned out exceedingly better than Samuel had anticipated, fostering a sense of unity around what he once viewed as competing narratives. Each piece sold became not just a financial triumph, but a vital step towards healing the fractures within their community. When the auction fell silent, Samuel stood on that same stage amid applause and cheers, victory rippling throughout the crowd. Merle approached him, the rancher's demeanor transformed. "You put your heart into this," he said, the weight of his earlier skepticism dissolving. "Maybe it's time we reconsider what these stories truly mean." As Samuel absorbed his words, he recognized his own journey of transformation mirrored the rancher's arc. The world had not only expanded for the youths of the gallery, but for Merlin himself. The accomplishment transcended the auction. It solidified Samuel's place as both an artist and a mentor, someone who understood the delicate dance between heritage and future. Ultimately, today marked not just a triumph of art and commerce, but the establishment of a new identity rooted in courage and authenticity. Samuel had conquered doubt and fear. He had embarked on a venture that challenged tradition, yet embraced growth. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of camaraderie and acceptance, he realized he now stood confidently in his skin, ready to embrace whatever story came next, knowing that true strength lay in exploration, vulnerability, and the compassionate connection he had cultivated. With the realization of his achievements settling in, Samuel turned to the canvas of life ahead, embracing the potent reality of who he had become. A bridge not just for others, but for his own heart as well. Now, it's your turn to step into this journey of transformation and understanding. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support counts. Comment your reactions and theories about this uplifting conclusion. We want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. You need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second to share. Realize the living importance of holding the narrative and honoring each other's stories.